Hello, this is Gene. I want to talk about something that people have been covering a lot on YouTube. It's The Last Jedi. And while this is not going to be a review of The Last Jedi, I think that a lot of people have been online, hundreds, possibly thousands at this point, that had their piece to say about the movie. Personally, I'm not in favor of the movie, just say that. But I want to talk about an area that is not really talked about. Before I get there, though, I'm going to say a few things, and then they'll go to the area that I want to talk about today. There are a lot of people that are still defending the movie based on the backlash it's got. A lot of people come out and pointed out the overt feminism that's in the movie and the SJW type of tactics that you see in the movie. And I think that those were all fair critiques of the movie. Now, of course, they call these type of people misogynists, or we can't deal with females being in power. And I just want to say to those type of people, we have no issue with a female being the star of the movie. I think a lot of people still like Rey in the first movie. I had problems with her origin story, and I was hoping that the new movie would actually do something about it that would show why she is so powerful the way she is. Unfortunately, the new movie didn't do that. Now, that could have been just one small little area that people could have issues with. There were a lot of issues about the writing of the movie, that it was too many plot devices that were messed up. Or the physics in space about the Leia scene where she's flying in space. Or the Bonds falling off of like a bomber from 1944. That doesn't really work in space. Now, we know that not all the way that they showed the physics of space in Star Wars. I mean, you don't hear stuff in safe. I mean, there are a lot of things that they don't do, but when it's so visually important, that it's just lazy writing. And unfortunately, people like this will say it's still because you hate women or something like that. Well, before I get to what I want to talk about, is that let's talk about this just for a minute. These people, and I talk about these people, I'm talking about Kathleen Kennedy, who was a producer and was given carte blanche to do this to the new sequels. And she is out there all the time saying she's a feminist, saying that Star Wars will be a feminist type of movie. She's walking around with shirts saying the Force is female. So this is her bias, and she's put it in her movie. Okay? She does it out there, and these people still defend that and say, oh, you're just looking into it too hard. You're just doing it because you're biased, because you're a man. And the issue here is when feminism is spouting pseudoscience like toxic masculinity, and then they want to put that in their movie and basically show it to billions of people that says this is how the real world is. They look at the current year and they want to inject that into the movie. So I want to talk about the current year. Before I say that, also Rain, the director of this last movie, is a feminist as well, and he's written several things, or he's been interviewed many times about this, and said, yes, there's a bent to feminism here. Now, people who look at rational, logical type of things and say to yourself, feminism is not based on anything. It is an ideology that basically says women are superior, and they have to destroy whatever got us here to where we got from, the patriarchy. And there are these people that claim that they're feminists, but they're not really. They're about women's rights. They're human rights people, right? But they think they're feminists because they're female. And they just don't look down and see what they are actually doing. The people that actually run the National Organization of Women, or the feminists think tanks, what they actually believe and what they actually put down on print, and what they actually teach our people, our kids in college in gender studies type courses. So I want to talk about, they want to inject current year SJW shit into this movie, and they did it. But people are not really looking at the area that they did it. And I want to talk about that. I'm talking about Luke Skywalker and his arc in the story. There is nobody in this fantasy land. Now, again, it's not really fantasy because the producer and the director, the writers, are injecting real world shit into this. So I'm going to talk about it like that. This is a real man. Let's just say he was. Let's say he saved the entire galaxy from this this Nazi type of regime that that the Empire was. So 30 years ago in the storyline, he saved everybody. He should be the most famous person in the galaxy. He should be lauded wherever he goes. But this man apparently decided that he had to go be by himself. Now, I have not watched the entire movie. I've seen large cuts on it on the internet. My son has a bootleg of the movie, and I've seen several parts of it. And I've seen a lot of people's response to the movie, and then I look at what they're trying to say. I have no issue with the other parts of the movie that it's more technical or that type of stuff, but there is an agenda that's here, and this is what I want to talk about today. Excuse me for that. So they have this man who was the hero, should have been deified, let's say, for forever. Should have always been looked at as somebody that people would take care of, that they would not just allow him to push himself away from everybody else. So I see this where he goes to this island by himself, and I guess this whole thing about he almost killed his nephew, which is Ben Solo, and we don't really see that other than we see part of it, and we don't see why he did this. There have been flashbacks of what happened to his temple, but we don't understand why. Now, okay, yeah, you can be despaired about that, but Mark Hamill had already said during coming up to this movie that he basically disagreed with every part that they were going to do with Luke. And of course now he's backtracked because he wants to have money. I mean, obviously. And he said it's not his story. But I think in this area he's wrong. The entire story is about him and his family. And they said this before the movie, that this is a Skywalker film. That's what it's about. And then we have Rey, who has no, apparently, lineages to anybody. Everybody's talked about that. I'm talking about Luke himself and why he did what he did. And it looks like to me, again, I'm looking at it from a guy that's been a MRA for a long time, that's talking about what men do when they're not valued in society. And I said, again, they are taking and injecting current types of issues into this movie. So what I see here is that here's a man, at some point he was shamed so much that he had to go off by himself and be an old grumpy man, and nobody was going to come to his aid. But he still put that little thing out there. He said, this is where you can find me, because I want to be of value to the rebellion or the good guys, let's say. And he put it out there. And he's sitting there for all this time, and nobody comes and asks for his help. After he did all this stuff to save everybody, then it seemed like the entire universe has just basically turned his back on them. So I look at movements like MGTOW, and I think that what they've done here is they said he is an epitome, or kind of like an example of somebody who's going MGTOW, because he's out there by himself, and he turns out like this, and he couldn't stay in with society, and this is what happens to you. So I don't know if this was a way to get back at this part of the manosphere from Kathleen Kennedy, because I'm sure she knows about MGTOW is, and I think that she wanted to make him to be that way. And then at the end, when Rey is there, and he just basically, his value is lost so much that he takes the lightsaber and throws it off his back like that. That his value of whatever he was as a Jedi is lost, and then he has this one opportunity to get some of that back, and the writers basically shows him being weak compared to Rey. So here you got this man who saved the galaxy, that he thinks that his value is basically taken away. Then he has somewhat of a glimmer to come back, but he is so far down that rabbit hole that it's very hard for him to come back. And then he's ousted by somebody who has no training at all. And then at the end of the movie, he basically commits suicide. So this is an interesting take that I have on the movie. It almost sounds like this movie is basically shaming men who go their own way, let's say, that even though you did everything for society, that still you're just a tool for the society itself. And at the end of the day, we don't really care what happens to you. A guy that would have been so famous, so lauded, so there should have been statues around the world erected to his likeness, although he probably wouldn't have done that as a Jedi. And nothing in the last 30 years in the storyline shows that Luke would have ever asked anybody to do that, and there's no reason why Luke would be on that island below by himself. Now, let me tell you why I think if anybody responds to this and says, no, 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 they're doing the same thing they did Obi-Wan. Because Obi-Wan was sitting here, was a hermit and that type of thing. And I would say, okay, I don't think that's true. I think he was supposed to basically look after Luke. So I think that was his, he was told by Yoda that was what he was supposed to do. And then when he had his final battle, let's say, he went out as a warrior. How did Luke go out here? He basically said, I'm tired. And he just killed himself. So is this like, again, I might be just looking into it too far, but I'm not, because the people that made this movie are feminists. And they're not feminists because the good feminists. These are the ones that actually believe like what Dworkin thinks. And some of these people think about men. And they think that men, they're just obviously the problem. And they need to be stopped. And no matter what, the state still will look at men as tools of the state, and I think that Luke felt that way, and he was tired. Now, it makes no sense because he was a Jedi that was always optimistic. So when you take and just you crushes a man so hard, as great as a man as he was, and the story that he has as a man, they crutched it so much that he just said, "I'm going to die" at the end. He had a little bit of movement, but he didn't have the right type of sent off. Neither did Lon Soto. But apparently, a woman that's not really alive is going to didn't die in that movie. So now, I could go on about the movie, but I want to talk about this. Luke is probably at that same age group between 45 and 64, which is the highest suicide for white men in the United States and in the Western world. It's some crazy thing like 30% of people or 35% of the people that die, that it's not like from accident or something like that, or just from natural causes. Like the number one thing of people dying at that age is somebody committing themselves or killing themselves. Yes, there's been a uptick for women as well, and they look at the stats and they say, oh, women have had it worse. Well, women went from like 5.9 to 12%, men went from 25 to 37%. So you look at that, it says, oh, it's 100% more for women and only 55% more for men. And it's like, oh, it's an epidemic on the female side. And so we still have people trying to get money for that, but there's nothing for men. So when we talk about current year and how the feminists actually think, how they want to inject their ideology in their movies, it seems pretty clear to me that at the end of the day, the most powerful, the most lauded man in all of Star Wars lore has to kill himself at the end, because his value is taken away. The man never marries. Now, I know in the canon itself, maybe he doesn't, but there are a lot of books out there that says he fathers people and stuff. So here's a man who did all this stuff, and at the end, he's alone. And when somebody comes to this island, and yeah, he's being the old, either mentor, old young guy, and you got to be more gruff and shit. That's not how. There is no other storyline that I've seen that's how it ends up. That the master should not be defeated in the first episode of it. It should be something that shows something more. And it's unfortunately, and I think a lot of people are saying that this movie should actually be basically forgotten, even though it's making a lot of money and it hasn't made as much as they thought. But were they going to do anything about it? Will they actually fire her? No, because Hollywood has just lost themselves. And it all kind of like comes back to everything that with like the Me Too and everything. And unfortunately, there are people that are actually coming back against that. There are women, French actresses that are saying this Me Too thing it's gone too far. You're basically saying it's a new type of silent witch girls. But I don't want to talk about that. The question I have to say for you that are watching this movie or this video, did you see what I saw? And maybe I'm because I'm MRA and I know this, but the thing about men, and I don't think women understand this. They think they know enough about us, but they don't. When a man doesn't have value, if he's not fighting for something or protecting his family, unless they're a certain type of men, they lose their values in our world. And apparently in Star Wars, it's the same thing. It seems to me that he lost his value, and he blamed himself some of the decisions that he made and the things he didn't do better, let's say. And he took it all in, and eventually just said, "That's enough. I'm tired. I'm gonna leave," which is anathema to his entire character arc. Why would they put that in the movie? He should have a warrior's type of death if he's going to die at all. He should have that same type of warrior death that all of them had. Darth had it. His Ben had it. Qui-Gon had it. It's like they all had it except him, and Solo didn't have it either. But that's the son versus the dad. That's since we started writing and shit. I mean, that's nothing new. So that's all I had to say. Let me know what you think below. I know that the only time I ever talked about Star Wars, it was the most popular video I ever did. So maybe people see this, and they might look at my other content and see what I'm talking about in the other areas. I'm not talking about the alt-right here, although there's more we could talk about in Last Jedi about that or anything about Star Wars. But again, thank you for watching, and let me know down low, and we can talk about it in the comments. You guys have a good day.